The morning mist hung thick over the Korean mountains when Kite heard the crash. He was checking the solar panels on his research station when a thunderous boom echoed through the valley. The ground shook under his feet, and birds scattered from the trees in panic. Kite grabbed his equipment bag and headed toward the sound. As an engineer working on sustainable energy systems, he spent most of his time alone in these remote mountains. Crashes usually meant aircraft accidents and people might need help. The hike took him deeper into the forest than he had ever gone. Broken branches and scorched earth marked a path of destruction. The smell of burning metal filled the air. When Kite finally reached the crash site, his mouth fell open. The wreckage was not from any aircraft he recognized. Twisted metal gleamed with an odd purple shine. Strange symbols covered the hull pieces scattered across the forest floor. This was not human technology. Kite moved carefully through the debris. His heart pounded as he realized he was looking at an alien spacecraft. The hull was black and sleek, designed for speed rather than comfort. Weapon ports dotted the sides and cage-like structures hung from the rear section. Then he heard it. A low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from pain itself. Following the sound, Kite found the largest piece of wreckage. Part of the ship's hull had crushed several trees, creating a dark cave of twisted metal. Inside that cave, something moved. Kite switched on his flashlight and peered into the darkness. Two golden eyes stared back at him, filled with intelligence and suffering. The creature was massive, easily the size of a small building. Scales covered its body, shifting colors from deep blue to silver as the light hit them. Large wings were pinned under metal beams and blood seeped from many wounds. It was a dragon, not the mythical kind from old stories, but something real and alien and magnificent. The dragon watched Kite without moving. Its breathing was labored, and metal bands circled its neck and legs. These bands sparked with electricity, clearly, designed to cause pain. The dragon's eyes held no hope, only the tired acceptance of more suffering. Kite stepped back, his mind racing. This was beyond anything he could handle. He should call the authorities, let the government deal with this. But something stopped him. The dragon's eyes reminded him of an injured animal he had found as a child, a dog that had been abandoned and hurt by cruel people. That dog had looked at him with the same mixture of intelligence and despair. He made a decision that would change everything. Kite spent the next hour examining the wreckage more carefully. He found data storage devices that still functioned. When he connected them to his portable computer, alien text filled the screen. His translation software struggled but managed to decode some of the information. The ship belonged to something called the Vextar Empire. According to the logs, they were hunters, not hunters of animals, but hunters of intelligent species. The dragon was called a void drake, one of the last of its kind. The Vextar had been tracking it across space for months. The logs described how they captured these creatures. They used pain devices to break their spirits, then forced them to serve as weapons and mounts for Vextar warriors. The dragon had been a prisoner, not a partner. Kite read about other species the Vextar had enslaved, crystalline beings used as living computers, shapeshifters forced to work as spies, plant-like creatures tortured for information. The Empire built its power on the suffering of others. The dragon, the logs called it by a number, not a name, had escaped during the crash. The ship's systems had failed, and the pain devices had stopped working long enough for the creature to break free. But freedom had come too late. The crash had injured it badly, and it was trapped under the wreckage. Kite looked back at the dragon. It was still watching him as if trying to understand what this strange bipedal creature would do. All its experience told it that two-legged beings brought only pain and chains. But Kite was not like the Vextar. He set down his tools and approached slowly, hands visible and empty. The dragon tensed, expecting an attack or the sting of a pain device. Instead, Kite sat down just outside the wreckage and began to speak. "I know you can understand me," he said quietly. "I don't know how, but your eyes are too smart for you not to understand. My name is Kite. I want to help you." The dragon said nothing, but its golden eyes never left Kite's face. "I read about what they did to you, Kite. continued. The Vextar. I read about the pain devices in the cages. I'm not like them. I'm human from this planet. We're not part of their empire. Kitai pulled out his engineering scanner and showed it to the dragon. This can tell me how badly you're hurt and where these metal bands are connected. I think I can remove them, but only if you let me. I won't force you to do anything. For long minutes they stared at each other. Kitai could see the dragon thinking, weighing its options. Trust meant vulnerability, and vulnerability had only brought suffering before. Finally, the dragon closed its eyes and lowered its massive head. It was not surrender. It was a choice. A decision to take one more risk on the kindness of strangers. Kitai moved carefully into the wreckage. Up close, the dragon was even more magnificent. Its scales were like living metal, and its breathing moved air currents around Kitai like gentle wind. But the wounds were terrible. The metal bands had burned into the creature's flesh, and several bones were clearly broken. I'm going to touch the scanner to your neck now, Kitai said. It won't hurt. The dragon flinched when Kitai's hand touched its scales, but it did not pull away. The scanner revealed the full extent of the damage. The pain devices were connected to the dragon's nervous system, designed to cause maximum suffering with minimal effort. Kitai spent the rest of the day carefully removing the devices. His engineering background helped him understand the alien technology. Each band had a simple release mechanism, but it was hidden and required precise timing to avoid triggering the pain circuits. When the last device fell away, the dragon raised its head and looked at Kitai with something new in its golden eyes. Not trust yet, but the possibility of trust. As the sun set over the mountains, Kitai made camp near the wreckage. The dragon watched him set up his tent and start a small fire. When Kitai offered some of his food, the dragon politely declined, with a slight shake of its head. Tomorrow I'll figure out how to get you out of there, Kitai promised, and then we'll see about getting you somewhere safe. The dragon's eyes reflected the firelight as night fell over the crash site. For the first time in centuries, it went to sleep without pain devices burning into its flesh. And for the first time since its capture, it allowed itself to hope that not all bipedal creatures were monsters. Kitai sat by his fire, planning and thinking. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness had just started a chain of events that would shake the foundations of a galactic empire. 3 days passed before Kitai managed to free the dragon from the wreckage. Using hydraulic jacks from his research station, he slowly lifted the metal beams that pinned the creature's wings. The dragon endured the process in silence, golden, eyes tracking every movement. Kitai had expected the dragon to fly away once freed. Instead, it crawled to a sunny clearing and collapsed, too weak from injuries and starvation to do more than breathe. The creature was larger than Kitai had realized, nearly 30 meters from nose to tail with wings that would span even wider when healthy. You need food, Kitai said, though he had no idea what dragons ate. And medical attention. The dragon watched him with those intelligent eyes but remained silent. Kitai had tried talking to it many times over the past few days. He was certain it understood human speech, but it refused to respond in any way. On the 4th day, Kitai's sister, Subin, arrived at the research station. She was a xenobiologist who studied alien plant samples brought back by Earth's exploration missions. Kitai had sent her a carefully worded message asking for help with an unusual biological discovery. Subin took one look at the dragon and sat down hard on a fallen log. "Brother," she said quietly, "what have you gotten yourself into?" Kitai told her everything. The crash, the alien data, the torture devices, his decision to help. Subin listened without interruption, her scientific mind already working on the implications. "This creature is clearly intelligent," she said, approaching the dragon slowly. "Look at how it positions itself to watch both of us. It's analyzing threats and escape routes." The dragon's head swiveled to focus on Subin. She knelt down and placed her hands flat on the ground in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peaceful intent. "Hello," she said. "I'm Subin. Kitai is my brother. We want to help you heal." For the first time, the dragon reacted to human speech. Its eyes widened slightly, and its head tilted in what might have been curiosity. Subin opened her medical kit and showed each instrument to the dragon before using it. She took tissue samples, measured vital signs, and documented injuries with the careful precision of a scientist. But she also talked constantly, explaining what she was doing and why. "These burns on your scales are infected," she said, cleaning wounds with antiseptic. "The metal bands were designed to prevent healing. Whoever built them understood your biology well enough to cause maximum suffering." The dragon's breathing hitched when she said this. The first emotional response Kaite had seen. "But they didn't understand everything," Subin continued. "Your cellular structure is incredibly resilient. With proper treatment, most of this damage will heal completely." Over the following days, Subin established a treatment routine. She cleaned wounds, administered antibiotics adapted for the dragon's unique physiology, and provided nutrient solutions when the creature refused solid food. Kite helped by building a shelter around the clearing, protecting the dragon from weather and potential observation from aircraft. The dragon remained silent through all of this care. It accepted treatment without resistance but showed no gratitude or trust. Kite began to worry that the Vextar had broken something inside the creature that could never be repaired. The breakthrough came on the 10th day. Kite was working on the shelter's roof when the rain started. The dragon had been resting in the sun, but the sudden downpour sent it scrambling for cover under the incomplete structure. In its haste, the creature bumped into Kaite's ladder. Kaite fell toward a pile of sharp metal debris from the original crash. He was going to land badly, possibly fatally, when something enormous and warm wrapped around him. The dragon had moved faster than Kite thought possible, catching him with one massive wing and lowering him gently to the ground. They stared at each other in the rain. Kite was unhurt, protected by the same creature he had been trying to help. The dragon's golden eyes were wide with what looked like surprise at its own actions. "Thank you," Kite said simply. The dragon's voice filled his mind like distant thunder, not words, but meaning that bypassed language entirely. "Why did you remove the pain devices?" Kite sat up slowly, his heart racing. The dragon was speaking to him telepathically. "Because they were hurting you. No one deserves that kind of suffering." The Vextar said all bipedal species enjoy causing pain. They said it was natural for your kind to dominate others. "The Vextar were wrong," Kite replied. "Some humans are cruel, yes, but many of us believe in helping others, in protecting those who can't protect themselves. I have lived for 800 of your years. I have known only the Vextar." Subin had heard the mental voice too. She approached carefully, rainwater streaming down her face. "What is your name?" she asked. The dragon was quiet for so long that Kite thought it wouldn't answer. Then images filled their minds, vast spaces between stars, the joy of flight through cosmic winds, the songs of a dying world. "My people called me by a concept your language cannot hold. But in this place, under this sky, call me Hanul." "Sky," Subin translated, smiling. "It's a beautiful name." Over the next few hours, Hanul shared fragments of memory. The Void Drakes had once been guardians of space, maintaining balance between species and protecting the weak from predators. They had lived on a world that orbited no star, drawing energy directly from cosmic radiation. The Vextar had come as traders, claiming to seek knowledge and friendship. But they had studied the Drakes carefully, learning their weaknesses and the locations of their nesting grounds. The attack, when it came, had been swift and total. "We were too trusting," Hanul said. "We believed that intelligence meant wisdom, that technology meant civilization. We learned too late that some species use both for cruelty." "How many of you survived?" Kite asked. "I do not know. The Vextar scattered us across their empire. Some were broken into weapons. Others were used for sport. A few, like me, were kept as prizes for their highest commanders." Hanul's mental voice carried centuries of pain and loss. Subin found herself crying as she felt echoes of the dragon's memories. Friends torn away, dignity stripped, hope slowly dying under constant torment. "You're safe now," she said. "We won't let them take you again. You cannot stop them. When they discover their hunter ship is missing, they will come looking. Your species is not ready for war with the Vextar Empire." Kite stood up, rainwater dripping from his clothes. "Maybe not for war, but we're very good at hiding things, at building places where refugees can be safe." Hanel lifted his great head, studying Kite with new interest. "You would do this? Risk your world's safety for one broken dragon?" "You're not broken," Kite said firmly. "Injured, yes. Traumatized, certainly, but not broken. And you're not. Just one dragon. You're the first refugee we've found who needs our help. You won't be the last." Subin nodded agreement. "If the Vextar are hunting other species to extinction, there must be survivors hiding across the galaxy. If we can save you, maybe we can save others too." Hanel was quiet for a long time, golden eyes reflecting the gray sky. When he finally spoke, his mental voice carried something it hadn't held for centuries. "Hope is dangerous. It makes the pain worse when it is taken away." "Then don't let it be taken away," Kite replied. "Help us build something the Vextar can't destroy." The rain stopped and sunlight broke through the clouds. Hanel spread his wings to dry them, and for the first time since the crash, Kite saw how magnificent the dragon truly was. The scales caught the light like living metal, and the wings cast shadows that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. "I will try," Hanel said. "But if the hunters come, I will face them alone. I will not let your kindness become the cause of your destruction." Kite smiled. "We'll see about that." That night, as they sat around a small fire, Hanul shared more memories, not of pain and loss, but of beauty. He showed them the Void Drake homeworld in its prime, when dragons sang among the stars and young ones learned to fly between planets. He shared the ancient songs his people had sung to guide lost travelers safely home. For the first time in 800 years, Hanul was not alone. And for the first time since finding the crash site, Kite began to understand the true scope of what they were attempting. They were not just helping one refugee. They were defying an empire built on cruelty and starting something that could spread across the galaxy. The question was whether they could build it fast enough. 2 weeks after first contact with Hanul, Kite received news that changed everything. His friend Dongwu called from Seoul with urgent information. "The space monitoring stations have detected ships in the outer system," Dongwu said, his voice tight with worry. "They're not broadcasting any identification codes, and they're scanning every planet and moon." Kite felt his stomach drop. "How long before they reach Earth?" "Maybe a month if they're being thorough." "Kite, what's going on? The government is mobilizing the space defense forces, but no one knows what we're dealing with." Kite looked at Hanul, who was resting in the afternoon sun. The dragon's head lifted, golden eyes alert. Even without the telepathic connection, Hanul could sense Kite's distress. "I'll explain when you get here," Kite said. "But Dongwu, I need your help, and I need you to trust me completely." Dongwu had been Kite's friend since university. He had made billions developing clean energy technology and had always supported Kite's research projects. More importantly, he was one of the few people Kite trusted completely. "The hunters have come," Hanul said, his mental voice heavy with resignation. "I should leave. Find somewhere remote to hide until they give up searching." "No," Kite said firmly. "We're not giving up. We're going to build you a proper sanctuary, one where you'll be truly safe. You do not understand the resources of the Vextar Empire. They will not stop looking." Subin looked up from her notes on dragon physiology. "Then we make sure they can't find what they're looking for." That evening, Kite outlined his plan. They would build an underground sanctuary, hidden so well that even the most advanced alien scanners couldn't detect it. But it wouldn't just be a hiding place for Hanul. It would be a refuge for any alien species escaping persecution. "The cave system in these mountains goes deep," Kite explained, spreading geological surveys across his work table. Some tunnels are natural, others were carved by old mining operations. We can expand them, create a self-sufficient underground city. Hanul studied the maps with interest. Such a place would need its own power source, air filtration, food production. The Vextar use ground-penetrating sensors that can detect most underground facilities. That's where human engineering comes in. Kite smiled. We've gotten very good at hiding things from people who want to find them. When Dongwu arrived 3 days later, Kite led him to the clearing where Hanul waited. Dongwu's reaction was everything Kite had expected. Shock, disbelief, then rapid-fire questions as his brilliant mind grasped the implications. This is why the aliens are here, Dongwu said, staring at Hanul in wonder. They're hunting him. The Vextar Empire conquers by enslaving other species, Hanul explained, his telepathic voice reaching Dongwu for the first time. They have been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years. Your world would be next, whether you help me or not. Dongwu sat down heavily. How many ships are we talking about? A hunting fleet consists of 12 vessels, but if they find significant resistance, they will call for a conquest armada. Hundreds of ships, millions of soldiers. Then we make sure they don't find anything, Dongwu said, his business instincts taking over. Kite, this sanctuary idea of yours, how much would it cost? More than I can afford, Kite admitted. We need advanced shielding technology, life support systems, construction equipment. Consider it done, Dongwu said without hesitation. I'll liquidate some investments. This is more important than money. The next surprise visitor was Captain Yoon Mi-rae from the Korean Space Defense Force. She arrived in uniform, which made Kite nervous until she explained her purpose. I've been tracking the alien ships, she said. My superiors think they might be peaceful explorers, but their movement patterns suggest hunting behavior. They're systematically searching each planet and moon. Mi-rae was a career military officer who had joined the Space Force to protect Earth from threats like this. When Kite showed her Hanul and explained the situation, her response was immediate. What do you need from me? Military-grade sensor shielding, Kite said. Something that can hide a large underground facility from alien scanners. That's classified technology, Mi-rae said. Using it for an unauthorized project would end my career. And if you do nothing, the Vexatar will end your civilization, Hanul said quietly. They do not negotiate with species they consider inferior. Mi-rae studied the dragon for a long moment. You really think they'll attack Earth? Eventually. If not this year, then next year or the year after. The Empire never stops expanding. Then we'd better get started, Mi-rae said. Over the following weeks, the Sanctuary project took shape with remarkable speed. Dongwu's money bought the most advanced construction equipment available. Mi-rae provided military-grade technology that could hide their work from both human and alien sensors. Su-bin designed biological systems that could support multiple alien species with different environmental needs. The construction site was a carefully chosen cave complex, 5 kilometers from the original crash site. Automated drilling machines worked around the clock, carving living spaces from solid rock. The facility was designed in modules. Each section could be sealed off independently and had its own life support systems. Hanul contributed more than just advice. The Dragon's knowledge of alien technology helped them understand what the Vextar scanners would be looking for. More importantly, Hanul began reaching out across space with his telepathic abilities, searching for other survivors who might need sanctuary. There are others, he reported one evening, scattered across nearby star systems. Some are hiding on dead worlds, others in asteroid fields. They are afraid to respond to my calls, but they are listening. How many? Su-bin asked. Dozens, perhaps hundreds. Survivors from species the Vextar have hunted to near extinction. Some have been alone for centuries. Kite felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They weren't just building a sanctuary for one dragon anymore. They were creating a lifeline for the scattered remnants of entire civilizations. The sanctuary's first major test came when Dr. Park So-young joined the project. So-young was a trauma therapist who had worked with war refugees and torture survivors. When Dongwu explained what they were doing, She immediately understood the psychological challenges they would face. Survivors of systematic persecution often have severe trust issues, she told Kite. They may see kindness as a trap, or refuse help because accepting it makes them vulnerable again. Her first session with Hanul proved her point. The dragon had been cooperating with the construction project, but he had never truly opened up about the worst of his experiences with the Vextar. I do not wish to burden you with those memories, Hanul said when So Young asked about his time in captivity. The memories burden you whether you share them or not, So Young replied gently, but sharing them might help you carry that weight. It took many sessions, but gradually Hanul began to speak about the worst parts of his captivity. The casual cruelty of his captors, the way they had broken other dragons in front of him as psychological torture, the slow erosion of hope as years turned to decades, then centuries. You survived because you never completely gave up, So Young told him. Some part of you always believed that freedom was possible, even when you couldn't see how. Perhaps. Or perhaps I was simply too stubborn to die. Stubbornness can be a form of hope. So Young smiled. As the sanctuary neared completion, Kite realized that they had built something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just a hiding place, but a healing center where traumatized refugees could recover their sense of self-worth and purpose. The main cavern was vast enough for Hanul to fly in, with thermal pools for healing and crystal formations that caught and amplified light. Smaller chambers provided privacy for different species with varying social needs. The medical center was equipped to handle everything from human injuries to completely alien physiologies. Most importantly, the entire facility was designed around choice. Refugees could leave whenever they wanted. They could participate in the community or remain isolated. They could share their stories or keep them private. After lifetimes of having no control over their lives, the simple ability to make choices was profoundly healing. You have built more than a sanctuary, Hanul told Kite as they stood in the completed main cavern. You have built hope made manifest. We all built it, Kite replied, and we're about to find out if it works. The first refugee ship was already on its way to Earth. Hanul had convinced a group of crystalline beings to risk the journey. They had been hiding in an asteroid field for 50 years, slowly dying as their energy reserves depleted. Are you ready for this? Subin asked her brother. Kite looked around at the sanctuary they had created, hidden beneath tons of rock, shielded from the most advanced sensors, equipped to support life forms they had never imagined. It was everything he had planned, but he knew the real test would come when refugees with centuries of trauma tried to trust again. I don't think anyone can be ready for this, he said, but we're going to try anyway. Outside, Vextar hunting ships continued their systematic search of the solar system. They had no idea that their quarry was not only hidden, but was actively working to save others from their empire's cruelty. The first refugee ship arrived on a cold morning in November. Kite watched from the sanctuary's hidden observation deck as a crystalline vessel, no larger than a small aircraft, descended through Earth's atmosphere with the erratic flight pattern of something barely holding together. Hanul stood beside him, golden eyes tracking the ship's approach. They are afraid, he said. Zephyr's people have been hiding for so long that coming to another planet feels like madness. The ship landed in the designated clearing 3 kilometers from the sanctuary entrance. Kite and Subin approached slowly, hands visible and empty. The airlock opened with a hiss of escaping gases, and 3 beings emerged. They were unlike anything Kite had imagined. Each refugee was roughly humanoid, but made entirely of living crystal. Their bodies caught and refracted light, creating rainbow patterns that shifted with their movements. The largest one, presumably Zephyr, stood nearly 3 meters tall with geometric patterns carved into their crystalline skin. Peace. Hanul's mental voice carried a greeting that the crystalline beings could understand. These humans are the ones I told you about. They offer sanctuary without chains. Zephyr's voice resonated like wind chimes in a storm. They spoke in harmonics that Kite's translation device struggled to interpret. We are the last of the resonance choir, Zephyr said. Finally, The Vextar used our people as living computers, forcing our minds to process their data until we burned out and died. We three escaped when our prison ship crashed, but we have been slowly dying ever since. Subin stepped forward with her medical scanner. May I examine you? I'd like to understand your physiology so we can help you recover. The three crystalline beings exchanged harmonic communications. Their distrust was obvious. Medical examinations had been the prelude to slavery under the Vextar. You may refuse, Kite said clearly. You may leave whenever you want. We will not force you to do anything. This simple statement seemed to shock them more than any threat could have. One of the smaller beings who introduced themselves as Harmony began to weep. The tears were liquid light that fell from their crystal features like drops of starfire. We had forgotten, Harmony said, that choice could exist. The sanctuary systems adapted to the crystalline beings' needs better than Kite had hoped. They required specific light frequencies to maintain their health, and they fed on electromagnetic radiation rather than physical food. The facility's power systems provided exactly what they needed, but the emotional healing proved more complex. The resonance choir had been a collective consciousness before their capture. The Vextar had deliberately broken those mental connections, leaving each survivor isolated in their own crystal shell. Dr. So Young worked patiently with them, helping them process decades of forced isolation. 3 weeks later, a second refugee arrived. This one came alone, having stolen a Vextar scout ship in a desperate escape attempt. Whisper was a shapeshifter, their natural form a flowing mass of silver liquid that could take any appearance they chose. But Whisper was broken in a different way. The Vextar had used them as a spy, forcing them to infiltrate other species by taking the appearance of their loved ones. The psychological damage from betraying so many innocents had left Whisper unable to hold any single form for more than a few minutes. I am everyone and no one, Whisper said, their form constantly shifting between different faces they had worn. I have forgotten who I was before the Empire took me. Hanel spent hours with Whisper, sharing memories of freedom and identity. The dragon's ancient wisdom provided something that human psychology could not. The perspective of someone who had maintained their sense of self through centuries of abuse. You are not the roles they forced you to play, Hanul told Whisper. You are the being who chose to escape rather than continue hurting others. That choice defines you more than any form you have taken. The third refugee's arrival created the sanctuary's first serious crisis. Echo was not a single being, but a collective consciousness that had once spanned an entire forest world. The Vextar had captured pieces of Echo's network, torturing them for information about hidden rebel bases. What arrived at the sanctuary was a small cluster of plant-like beings, each one carrying fragments of a much larger mind. They were in constant psychic pain, feeling the absence of their missing parts like phantom limbs. We are incomplete, Echo said through rustling leaves and swaying branches. We can feel our other selves screaming across the void. How can we rest when so many of us suffer? Echo's arrival tested every system in the sanctuary. Their photosynthetic biology required specific soil compositions and atmospheric mixtures. Worse, their psychic distress was affecting the other refugees. Zephyr's crystal resonances became discordant. Whisper couldn't hold any form at all. Even Hanul showed signs of strain. We might have to ask Echo to leave, Subin said reluctantly. I don't want to, but they're making everyone else sicker. Kitai studied the readings from the sanctuary's biomonitors. Echo wasn't deliberately causing harm, but their psychic anguish was like a constant alarm that no one could ignore. Dr. So Young had a different suggestion. What if we don't try to stop Echo's pain? What if we help channel it productively? She proposed using Echo's network abilities to reach out to other survivors across the galaxy. Instead of suffering alone, Echo could become a communications hub for refugees throughout Vextar space. The plan worked better than anyone expected. Echo's fragments formed a psychic relay network that extended the sanctuary's influence across light years. They made contact with survivors on dozens of worlds, beings who had been hiding alone for decades, waiting for rescue that never came. We are no longer alone, Echo said, their mental voice carrying harmonics of joy for the first time since their arrival. We can feel others like us, others who have chosen freedom over servitude. But the expanded network also brought disturbing news. The Vextar hunting fleets were not just searching for Hanul anymore. Reports from across the galaxy indicated a massive military buildup. The Empire was preparing for something much larger than a simple recovery mission. Captain Mi-Ray brought additional intelligence from Earth's monitoring stations. The alien ships have started taking aggressive positions around our outer planets. They're not just hunting anymore. They're setting up a blockade. Hanul's golden eyes darkened with concern. They mean to claim this entire system. If they cannot find me, they will simply take everything and sift through the wreckage later. The sanctuary now housed 7 refugees from 4 different species. Each brought unique abilities and perspectives, but also deep trauma that affected the entire community. Kaite found himself serving as an unofficial coordinator, helping resolve conflicts between beings whose psychology he barely understood. The most serious conflict arose between Zephyr and Whisper. The crystalline being's harmonic communications interfered with Whisper's already fragile sense of identity. When Zephyr tried to help by modulating their resonance patterns, Whisper interpreted it as another form of control. "Everyone wants to change us," Whisper said, their form flickering rapidly between different appearances. "The Vextar wanted us to be weapons. Now you want us to be stable. Why can't we just be broken?" The argument escalated until Hanul intervened. With the full weight of his ancient authority, "Healing is not about becoming what others want you to be," he said. "It is about remembering who you were before the pain began." Dr. So Young worked with each refugee individually, helping them process trauma while learning to live in a diverse community. She discovered that many of their conflicts stemmed from the same source. They had survived as individuals by becoming hyper-vigilant about threats, making it difficult to trust anyone, even other survivors. "You're all suffering from what we call complex PTSD," she explained to the group during one of their community meetings. "Your survival instincts saved your lives, but now they're preventing you from healing." The breakthrough came when Echo proposed a shared memory experience. Using their network abilities, they could temporarily link the refugees' minds, allowing them to experience each other's perspectives directly. "We could understand," Echo said. "Not just know about each other's pain, but feel it ourselves. And feel each other's strength as well." The experience was intense and emotionally overwhelming. Kite and Subin participated as well, sharing their own memories of growing up human on Earth. For a few hours, 7 different species experienced true empathy, feeling each other's fear, pain, hope, and determination. When the link ended, Whisper had stabilized in a form that seemed to combine elements from all the species they had met. "I remember now," they said. "I was someone who could become anyone while remaining myself." Zephyr's harmonic patterns had become more complex, incorporating resonances that seemed to echo the other refugees' emotional states. "We are no longer a choir of one species," they said. "We are something new." Hanul surveyed the small community they had built together. Each refugee was still healing, still carrying the scars of their experiences. But they were no longer alone with their pain. "This is what the Vextar fear most," he told Kite that evening. "Not weapons or armies, but proof that their way is not the only way. We are creating something they cannot understand, a community built on choice rather than force." The betrayal came from an unexpected source. Shadow arrived at the sanctuary on a stormy winter evening, claiming to be a survivor from a species called the Umbral. They appeared as a vaguely humanoid figure made of living darkness, able to slip through the smallest gaps and hide in any shadow. "The Vextar used my people as assassins," Shadow explained to the gathered refugees. "We could become invisible, infiltrate any location. They broke us by forcing us to kill those we were sent to protect." Dr. So Young was immediately suspicious. Unlike the other refugees, Shadow showed no signs of trauma. Their responses to questions were too perfect, too rehearsed. But when she shared her concerns with Kite, he reminded her that different species processed trauma differently. Maybe their emotional responses just don't translate to what we'd recognize, he said. We can't judge alien psychology by human standards. Hanul was less charitable in his assessment. Something feels wrong, he told Kaitai privately, but I cannot determine what it is. Shadow's mind is slippery. I cannot read their thoughts clearly. For 3 weeks, Shadow integrated into the sanctuary community. They helped with construction projects, participated in therapy sessions, and seemed genuinely interested in the refugees' healing process. If anything, they appeared to be one of the most well-adjusted residents. That should have been the first warning sign. The revelation came during what should have been a routine supply run. Dongwu was returning from Seoul with medical supplies when his vehicle was intercepted by unmarked aircraft. He managed to send a brief warning before his communication was cut off. Vex-Tar ships are moving toward Earth, he transmitted. They know the location, they know everything. Within hours, the sanctuary's long-range sensors detected a massive fleet approaching from the outer system. 12 hunting vessels had become 50 warships, with more arriving through what appeared to be some kind of space portal. Captain Mirai contacted them on emergency frequencies. The entire Earth Defense Force is mobilizing, but we're massively outgunned. How did they find you so quickly? The answer became clear when Shadow revealed their true nature. During the evening meal, as the refugees gathered in the main cavern, Shadow's form began to change. The darkness solidified into the familiar purple and black armor of a Vex-Tar infiltrator. Did you really think you could hide from the Empire? Shadow asked, their voice now carrying the harsh electronic distortion of Vex-Tar technology. Every word you spoke, every plan you made, every weakness you revealed, all of it has been transmitted to the hunting fleet. Whisper recoiled in horror, their shape-shifting form becoming unstable with shock. You pretended to be one of us. You made us trust you. Trust is a weakness, Shadow replied. The Empire exploits weakness. It is the natural order of things. Hanul rose to his full height, wings spread wide in a display of controlled fury. You dare speak of natural order? The Vex-Tar are parasites who destroy everything they touch. We bring order to chaos, Shadow said. We eliminate the weak and enable the strong to prosper. Your resistance only delays the inevitable. The confrontation was interrupted by alarms throughout the sanctuary. The Vex-Tar fleet had entered Earth's atmosphere and was demanding immediate surrender of all refugees. Kiti found himself at the center of a crisis that had escalated beyond anything he had imagined. The sanctuary's communication systems crackled, with incoming transmissions from world leaders, military commanders, and news networks. The entire planet was learning about the alien threat in real time. Admiral Kim Jae-sung, commander of Earth's Space Navy, contacted the sanctuary directly. We're prepared to fight, but we need to understand what we're facing. How many ships? What are their capabilities? Hanul provided tactical information while the refugees prepared for what might be their final stand. The Vex-Tar had brought enough firepower to destroy Earth's surface, but they wanted the refugees alive for public execution as an example to other potential rebels. We should surrender, Zephyr said, their crystalline form resonating with fear. Perhaps if we give ourselves up, they will spare this world. No, Echo said firmly, their plant-like network pulsing with determination. We have contacted others across the galaxy. Our capture would only encourage the Empire to hunt down every survivor we've reached. Dr. So-Young was helping coordinate the sanctuary's evacuation procedures when she made a disturbing discovery. Earth's news networks were broadcasting footage of the aliens, and public opinion was split. Some demanded that the refugees be handed over to prevent an invasion. Others called for resistance against alien tyranny. The Vex-Tar are winning the psychological war before the shooting even starts, she told Kaitai. They're making humans choose between saving themselves and protecting refugees. That choice became even more difficult when the Vex-Tar broadcast their ultimatum to every screen and communication device on Earth. The message was delivered by a being that looked almost human except for the purple tinge to its skin and the cold cruelty in its eyes. People of Earth, the alien commander said, you harbor criminals who have stolen property of the Vex-Tar Empire. Return them immediately, and your world will be spared. Continue to protect them, and you will share their fate. Admiral Jae-sung's response was broadcast minutes later. We don't negotiate with slavers and murderers. Earth stands with the refugees. But Ki-tae could see the doubt in people's faces as they watched the news. The Vextar fleet was massive, and Earth's defenses looked pathetically small in comparison. It would be so easy to just hand over 7 aliens to save 8 billion humans. The battle began at dawn. Vextar attack ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their weapons carving lines of fire across the sky. Earth's defense force rose to meet them, sleek fighters piloted by men and women who had never faced alien technology before. Captain Mireille led her squadron in the first engagement, her voice calm and professional over the communication channels, even as energy weapons lit up the sky around her. Enemy ships are faster than our projections, but their shields have weak points. Focus fire on the engine clusters. From the Sanctuary's observation deck, Kai-tae watched the aerial battle with a sick feeling in his stomach. Brave pilots were dying to protect refugees they had never met, based on principles that many humans weren't sure they believed in. Hanul stood beside him, golden eyes reflecting the explosions above. I should go to them, the dragon said. In open combat, I could help turn the tide. That's exactly what they want, Ki-tae replied. They're trying to draw you out, force you to reveal yourself, and I am allowing good people to die while I hide. Subin joined them, her face pale with stress. The news networks are reporting casualties, 30 fighters lost in the first wave. Admiral Jae-sung is asking if the refugees have any tactical information that could help. Echo's network had been monitoring Vexitar communications since the battle began. They are not trying to win quickly, the collective consciousness reported. This is a demonstration. They want Earth's population to watch their military being destroyed, so that humans will demand surrender. The psychological warfare was working. By midday, protests had erupted in major cities around the world. Some demanded that Earth fight to the end. Others called for the refugees to be handed over before more humans died. The crisis deepened when Shadow managed to escape during the confusion of the battle. The Vextar infiltrator had been confined but not imprisoned. Another act of mercy. That now seemed dangerously naive. They know the Sanctuary's exact layout, Mireille reported during a brief communication window between fighter sorties. Every entrance, every security system, every weakness. Dongwu, who had been rescued during a daring raid on the Vextar landing site, brought even worse news. They're not just here for the refugees anymore. I overheard their commanders talking. They've decided to claim Earth as a Vextar colony world. They say humans have proven too unpredictable to leave free. The refugees gathered in the Sanctuary's main cavern, each species dealing with the crisis in their own way. Zephyr's crystal form had become dim with despair. Whisper couldn't hold any single shape, constantly shifting between the faces of those who might die because of their presence. Echo's network pulsed with frantic activity as they tried to coordinate with other survivors across the galaxy. Only Hanul seemed calm, his ancient eyes focused on something beyond the immediate crisis. What are you thinking? Ki-tae asked. I'm remembering who I was before the Vextar broke me, Hanul replied. I am remembering what it means to be a guardian. As the second wave of the battle began, Hanul made a decision that would change everything. The dragon moved to the center of the cavern and began to sing, not with his voice but with harmonics that resonated through space itself. The song was beautiful and terrible, carrying the memories of a dying world and the determination of those who refused to surrender. It reached across the galaxy, touching the minds of every void drake still alive, every refugee still hiding, every being who had ever chosen hope over despair. And something answered. Across the galaxy, hidden survivors began to move. Ships that had been dark for decades powered up their engines. Weapons that had been buried were unearthed. Species that had given up the fight remembered why they had wanted to be free. The battle for Earth's freedom began with a sound that had not been heard in the galaxy for 1,000 years. The war song of the void drakes. Hanul's call had reached across space and time, touching minds that the Vextar Empire thought were broken beyond repair. As the song continued, more voices joined in. 3 other surviving dragons emerged from hiding places scattered across the galaxy, their ancient power awakening after centuries of forced slumber. Kite watched in amazement as portals opened in Earth's sky, not the cold, mechanical gateways the Vextar used, but shimmering tiers in space itself that pulsed with organic energy. Through them came ships of every conceivable design, crystalline vessels like Zephyr's people had once built, living ships grown rather than manufactured, and strange craft that seemed to bend reality around them. The Vextar fleet, which had seemed overwhelming minutes before, suddenly found itself outnumbered. "This is Captain Myray to all units," came the transmission from Earth's Defense Force. "New contacts are broadcasting friendship codes. Repeat, the newcomers are friendly. Adjust your targeting systems accordingly." Admiral Jae Sung's voice followed immediately. "All Earth forces coordinate with our new allies. Show them that humans know how to fight alongside friends." The battle became unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vextar hunters, trained to pursue fleeing prey, found themselves facing coordinated resistance from species they thought they had exterminated. The Empire's weapons were designed to break spirits as well as ships, but these refugees had already been broken and had chosen to rebuild themselves stronger. Echo's network became a living communication system, linking every allied ship and allowing perfect coordination despite the dozens of different languages and communication methods. Zephyr's people provided computational support that made Earth's primitive weapons far more accurate than they had any right to be. Whisper had somehow infiltrated several Vextar ships, creating confusion and sabotage from within. But it was Hanel who turned the tide of battle. The dragon emerged from the sanctuary's hidden entrance and took to the sky with a grace that made human pilots weep. Hanel was no longer the broken, wounded creature Kite had found in the wreckage. This was a guardian in their full power, wings that could span kilometers and breath that could melt starship armor. I remember now. Hanul's voice reached every mind in the system. I remember what it means to protect rather than serve. The dragon's attack on the Vextar flagship was not just a military strike. It was a statement. For centuries, the Empire had used captured dragons as symbols of their dominance. Now a free, Void Drake was tearing apart their command ship with claws that could cut through any material. Other Vextar vessels attempted to flee, but the Refugee Alliance had prepared for this. Portal generators hidden among the Allied fleet created exit points that led not to safety but to more ambushes. The Empire's forces found themselves trapped in a system they had expected to conquer easily. Subin coordinated the ground-based defense from the Sanctuary's command center. Her expertise in alien biology proved crucial when Vextar troops attempted to land and assault the facility directly. She had prepared biological countermeasures, modified Earth bacteria that could break down Vextar armor, plant spores that interfered with their breathing apparatus. "Kite," she called over the communication system. "The landing forces are retreating. Whatever you and Hanul have planned, it's working." But Kite wasn't just watching the battle anymore. He was coordinating something much larger. Dongwu had managed to tap into Earth's entire communication network, broadcasting the battle live to every screen on the planet. But more importantly, he was broadcasting it to every world in Vextar space. Billions of enslaved beings watched as their former prisoners fought back successfully. "This is going out everywhere," Dongwu reported. "Every species under Vextar control is seeing this. They're seeing that resistance is possible." Dr. So-Young was monitoring the psychological impact of the broadcast. "Rebellion is spreading. We're getting reports of uprisings on dozens of Vextar colony worlds. Slaves are turning on their masters." The tide of the battle shifted decisively when Hanul and the other 3 Void Drakes combined their abilities. Working together for the first time in centuries, they opened massive portals that connected distant parts of the galaxy. Refugee fleets that had been scattered and isolated suddenly had access to reinforcements and supplies. But the dragons did something even more significant. They began opening portals to Vextar prison worlds, allowing direct evacuation of slaves who had been trapped for generations. The Vextar Empire's greatest strength, its vast network of controlled worlds, became its greatest weakness As Refugee, rescue missions struck everywhere at once. Shadow, the infiltrator who had betrayed the sanctuary, made one final attempt to turn the battle. They had somehow reached the Vextar command ship and was feeding Admiral Zarthek information about the Alliance's weaknesses. The Dragon's portals require enormous energy, Shadow reported. If we can disrupt their power source, the refugee coordination will collapse. Admiral Zarthek, a veteran of 100 conquest campaigns, made the logical tactical decision. He ordered his remaining ships to concentrate fire on Hanul, reasoning that destroying the lead dragon would break the Alliance's spirit. It was exactly the wrong choice. When Vextar weapons struck Hanul, every refugee in the system felt the dragon's pain, but instead of breaking their spirit, it ignited something that had been building throughout the battle, the accumulated rage of every being who had suffered under the Empire's cruelty. Zephyr's crystalline form blazed with light as they channeled energy into weapons that could crack planets. Echo's network pulsed with furious determination as they coordinated attacks with precision the Vextar had never faced. Whisper abandoned all pretense of subtlety and began systematically destroying enemy ships from within. The three other void. Drakes converged on the Vextar flagship like ancient gods of war. Their combined assault didn't just destroy the ship. It erased it so completely that space itself seemed to forget it had ever existed. Admiral Zarthek's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. Impossible. Slaves do not defeat their masters. The natural order. Hanul's response reached every corner of Vextar space. The natural order is not domination. It is cooperation. It is choosing to protect rather than exploit. It is the right of every thinking being to be free. The battle for Earth ended not with humanity's destruction, but with the liberation of half the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the sanctuary became much more than Kitay had ever imagined. Refugee ships arrived daily, bringing survivors who had hidden for centuries. But they also brought former Vextar soldiers who had chosen freedom over empire, and slaves who had broken their own chains during the uprising. The facility that had been built to hide one dragon became the first embassy of the Galactic Refugee Alliance. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to draft new laws based on the radical idea that intelligence deserved freedom, regardless of the species that possessed it. Kitay found himself appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Alliance, despite having no diplomatic training whatsoever. His qualifications, according to Hanul, were simple. He had chosen to help a stranger without expecting anything in return. That is the foundation of civilization, the dragon explained during Kitay's first official meeting with other Alliance representatives. Not technology or weapons or conquest, but the willingness to extend compassion to those who are different from ourselves. Subin became the Alliance's chief xenobiologist, working to understand the needs of species that had been scattered across the galaxy. Her gentle approach to treatment had become the model for refugee care throughout Alliance space. Dr. So Young established the first intergalactic trauma recovery center, helping beings who had suffered under the Empire learn to trust again. Her techniques were being adapted for dozens of different psychologies, proving that healing was a universal need. Captain Mireille was promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of the Alliance Defense Force. But her primary mission was not conquest, but protection. The fleet she commanded included ships from every member species, working together to ensure that no empire could ever again dominate the galaxy through cruelty. Even Dongwu found a new purpose, using his business skills to coordinate the massive logistics of resettling refugees and rebuilding devastated worlds. But it was the small moments that Kitay treasured most. Watching Zephyr teach human children how to make music with light. Seeing Whisper find peace in a stable form that honored all the identities they had worn. Hearing Echo's songs as their network grew to include willing participants from across the galaxy. One evening, as Kitay stood on the sanctuary's observation deck, watching ships from a dozen species working together to build a new orbital station, Hanul joined him. "Do you regret it?" the dragon asked. "Your quiet life as an engineer is gone forever. You are now responsible for the peace of the galaxy." Kite smiled. Do you regret that first day when you chose to trust me instead of staying silent? Never, Hanul replied immediately. Though I sometimes wonder what would have happened if you had chosen differently. If you had seen a wounded alien and decided it was not your problem.